So today we're going to take a look at a scenario where the United States go into a civil war. This is of course a fictional scenario, so it's just fun, and so let's get right into the scenario. So maybe a lot of people in the United States aren't happy with Donald Trump and his questionable things he's been doing, trying to buy Greenland, the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and maybe some people aren't very happy with that. And the first group that's going to be breaking away from the U.S. is going to be a lot of New England. So that's going to include Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, and some of New York. Probably a lot of New York, and even New Jersey. A lot of this area did not vote for Trump in the last election. We're going to see another area break away, this time in California. And this will actually be like the whole state, also going up into Oregon, but the rest of Oregon and Washington also break away to form Cascadia, even pushing a little bit into neighboring states like Idaho and Montana. There's going to be one more group breaking away, and that's going to be up in Illinois, near Chicago, and into Wisconsin, and into Minnesota. Remember, this is just for fun. I'm looking at the election results map from the previous election, and Minnesota and Illinois both voted for Harris instead of Trump. Most of the Northeast did. New Mexico and Colorado also didn't vote for Trump, but they're not going to be breaking away because if they did, they would not really last. But there is one notable state that did vote for Trump in the last election that will also be breaking away, just to kind of spice things up a little bit. And of course, that's Texas. I didn't really draw it that well, but whatever, they have some extra land. Now, let's get started with the fighting. Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico probably aren't really going to be doing much in this scenario, so we're going to be mostly ignoring them and mainly just be focused on the lower 48. And, well, we shall do that, as Texas will begin to move their army into kind of New Mexico, taking over most of that state since, again, they voted for Harris instead of Trump, so to kind of welcome them. But Texas voted for Trump. They just want to be Texas themselves again. I don't know. California will also begin to push up, and they take over Las Vegas. The U.S. will have a lot of success pushing into the orange team, getting pretty close to cities like Chicago. And the red team has, well, they have a lot of money. They got like New York, Boston, a lot of population right here, and a lot of money, lots of economics and stuff. But a lot of the stuff still in the U.S. is also right there. And so this line isn't going to be changing very much, but the U.S. does push up a tiny bit, pushing up closer to Buffalo. Now, how would the rest of the world react to this? Well, Mexico, I don't think they would be that negative on this scenario. Russia and China would obviously be pretty happy. Iran would be happy. Countries like Ukraine would not be very happy. But then again, relations between the U.S. and Ukraine aren't that good at the moment. We're not going to talk about that right now, though. Most of Europe is probably not going to be that good. They're probably going to be kind of scared, since the U.S. is basically the only thing stopping Russia from invading all of them. But I mean, Russia is not even that strong. I mean, just look at them in Ukraine. Canada is probably kind of nervous, but they're probably kind of not at the same time. So, I don't know. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to change all the colors just to red, just to make it easier. There's two sides to this war, the breakaway states and then the Union. This isn't the same civil war that happened already in the U.S. This is just fictional, so yeah. But California and Texas are making plans and starting a campaign into meeting up in the middle of Arizona, and they do so successfully and take over the south of the state. So this red team is actually pretty powerful. I mean, they got, not only do they just have California and Texas on their side, which is already a lot, but they have Chicago, which is probably going to be gone soon. Oh, yeah, no, it's back in the blue team. But they also have cities like New York and Boston, which are also very profitable. And the blue team, all they really have is over here. This is all just mountains, and then this is just fields. So there's not really much here, but it does serve as a good buffer between them and the red team, because they're able to push a tiny bit more into Nevada before they hit the mountains, and they can't really go much farther. So anyway, the pocket up in Minnesota is just being absolutely destroyed. They don't stand a chance. And eventually they are completely wiped out. So that knocks out at least one front for the US. But then something happens to Alaska, and it's probably not good. At least for the US. The people of Alaska were fed up with this war. They didn't want to be shipped down here to fight. And so they just left and joined Canada. Now, obviously, the U.S. is extremely mad about this because Alaska has lots of resources like oil and wood. I don't know. But they kind of have other stuff to worry about right now, and they don't really have time for that. But we could probably see some other countries sending forces to fight for the U.S. We'd probably see volunteers from NATO countries going to fight for the blue team. And for the red team, I mean, they're still Western technically, so we probably wouldn't see that. This isn't an East versus West type of war. This is just a civil war. So it's kind of complicated because Russia and China don't really want to support them, but they kind of do, since the main central U.S. government is the blue team, and the Western countries like NATO are obviously going to be supplying them. But the red team is technically Western too, so it's kind of weird. So the red team probably isn't receiving that much aid. Maybe Mexico is aiding them. Some other parts of Latin America might be aiding them. But that's probably it. And I highly doubt that too, because I don't know why they would be. The red team actually does make gains in taking over all of New Jersey. And that is a huge blow to the blue team. And we actually see another pocket of red pop up in Virginia, where people are also not very happy. Most of this whole area didn't vote for Trump. That includes Washington, D.C. And so a lot of people just rise up and overthrow the military here, basically, allowing the red team to have a sweeping campaign through this area, taking over a majority of, the cities. And this is, again, a really large blow to the U.S. because, they just lost their capital. And doesn't Virginia have one of the largest harbors for the U.S. military or the U.S. Navy here? I think so. I think I heard that somewhere. But that is definitely a huge blow to the blue team. And Texas also begins to push out towards Louisiana, but the U.S. was kind of expecting this and pushed them back nearly all the way to Houston. And they're also pushing in and spearheading towards Dallas. Texas decides to go behind them, and they take over Oklahoma City. The red team also pushes up towards Denver, eventually taking over most of Colorado, since people there also are kind of welcoming. But, they don't really want war, so I don't know. Right now, it looks like the red team is definitely winning this war, but I would say it's pretty equal. The U.S. does push back against the red team kind of right here, but the red team is also pushing up more around the Great Lakes, so that's not good. And it's probably about now that a lot of European countries either send more aid to the U.S. or stop aiding the U.S. And based on the next couple of things, you're probably going to see what the answer was to that. The U.S. starts to absolutely destroy the red team in Colorado, basically kicking them back to Denver and almost back into New Mexico. The red team also begins to push into the blue team territory in Montana and Idaho, taking over a lot of land along the Canadian border. The blue team continues to push back against the red team in Virginia, and the red team continues to push through and push through the blue team, eventually taking over Detroit and a lot of Michigan. They then push over and they actually take back Chicago and Milwaukee. Texas also manages to push back against the Blue Army, pushing back out towards New Orleans, eventually taking over the city. They also push up, taking the blue team out of Texas. It is now that the United States is falling apart. We actually see Florida break away, do their own thing separate of both sides. They're not actually going to do anything, they're just going to kind of sit here. And this is actually going to do it for the war. Both sides are going to meet for peace. The U.S. actually surrenders. They lost nearly all their access to the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of their major cities and ports in the northeast, and they lost their entire western coast, which most of this is just blocked off by mountains, so it's really hard to get there anyways. Basically, all they have left is, well, the south, and then the fields right here in the Midwest. And that's not very strong. At least it's not stronger than California, Texas, and these large economic powerhouse states. And, well, it wasn't enough. So let's see what happens in this peace treaty and how the U.S. will be divided up. Okay, and so taking a look at this peace treaty, we can see that a lot has changed. They basically took no regard to state borders, except for Florida, and they kind of messed everything up, and it looks really bad. So if I remove the rivers layer, you can kind of see the borders a little bit better. Let's start up here. So we actually have Maine, who wanted to remain independent from the rest of New England, which also got some land out of northern New York, because New York City wanted to join the Union between like New Jersey, some Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Washington, and that, which is very strong economically. But we could see them either uniting with Canada or just joining New England in the future. Whichever or. They're both kind of likely. Next, we have this really weird kind of southern union right here, going all the way from West Virginia down to Mississippi. So this is going to be interesting, and I don't know why they left this as a country between this. So these two are probably just going to unite in the future. We also kind of have a Great Lakes union between Ohio and Michigan. They also got to keep a bit of the Upper Peninsula, but not much. Next, that original kind of thing that broke away up here for the red team is back. So, yay. Then there's this big central union with just like all the fields and stuff here. Again, yay. Then there's a big old Texas empire down here. They took a lot of land from just normal Texas borders, going all the way to Louisiana, to Colorado. Then there's Arizona, which is kind of just a buffer state between California and Texas. There's also a union between Utah and Colorado, or at least what's left of them. This kind of just looks like the Nevada border was just shifted past Las Vegas, which was annexed by California. And then there's just kind of Montana, Wyoming, and what was left of Idaho Union. And then, of course, there's Cascadia. Alaska joined Canada. Hawaii is independent, and I mean, they'll probably do fine. Puerto Rico is either under the control of Florida or they're independent. And for other U.S. overseas territories, like Guam, American Samoa, and these islands, they're probably under the control of Japan or Australia or even New Zealand. I don't know. But yeah, so that's going to do it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to subscribe. So yeah, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.